Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter where you are. Welcome. I'm George from ZenHub. Joining me today, Julie. Say hey, Julie.
Hello, everyone.
Julie is one of our customer success managers, and I am going to drive through some really exciting stuff. We're going to focus today on new addition to ZenHub called Automated Workflows for Team Workspaces. Julie will be handling questions as they come in, yeah, we're going to go through a few different use cases today so we can show you how we have set workflows up, and we'll answer questions as we go along. So just feel free to ask in the chat and we'll try and answer everything as we go. With that, let's get started. So again, today we're going to talk about automated workflows for team workspaces. This is an exciting new addition to ZenHub. You know, as we work, right, it all starts with an idea. And then we have to figure out some stuff, right? We need to decide what the priority is. We need to design it. When someone is going to take that idea and take that design and start implementing it, we might need to refine the idea, come up with an estimate, prioritize it, figure out when we can get it done, put it in a plan, start working on it, test it, and then release it. Now, 6-7 years ago, the fine folks at Spotify released some videos and popularized the squad model. You know, the ideal being that a small team would own this whole process from thought to production. Real life is messy sometimes. And I'm not saying that's not possible, it's absolutely possible. But this flow quite often comes with some handoffs. If you have separation of duty concerns, if you work in a highly regulated industry, it may not be possible for the same person to implement and test and release. There may have to be a handoff. And that handoff is often done by different teams, right? So what I put here is kind of a typical flow we see in working with our customers, that there's a product and design team, a development team, a QA team, a release team. Now, they all tend to work together, right? And you'll have a product owner working with a designer, working with a specific small team, a scrum team, a pod, a squad. The QA may be a member of the squad. It may be an external team, depending on that separation of duty concerns you may have. And then releasing, you know, may be something that is someone else has the keys to deployment. So those kind of handoffs can be tricky to coordinate. ZenHub has long had a feature called Workspaces. We figured out a long time ago that depending on your role, your workflow, your method of working may not match someone else's. And depending on what your focus is, your own workflow may change, right? So if I'm working in a development team, I have a very different workflow when I need to refine work versus when I need to put it into a plan versus when we're going to start sprinting and implement that work. So we're going to talk about two kind of use cases today. We're going to talk about coordinating team handoffs with automated workflows. And we're going to talk about how to use automated workflows to create really hyper-focused workspaces within ZenHub so that your team can really focus on the things that you need to get done, right? So I'm going to switch to ZenHub. And you'll see I've got this workspace that represents kind of the whole team view. right? So new issues, icebox, long-term goals, short-term goals, design backlog, in design, development backlog, sprint backlog, in progress, review, QA in progress, to be deployed. That's a lot. And then finally closed, live in production. Now, if I go to some of the other workspaces that exist, you'll see in this list here that each one of those teams has their own workspace. And the flow may look very different depending on who it is, right? To be triaged, design backlog, up next, in progress, design critique, ready for development, right? So depending on who is using this, using these set of issues, you know, the flow is going to be different. So here's the new addition. So over here under the sidebar, you'll see an option called workflows with a nice little new icon there to grab your attention. Here's what we can do now. First and foremost, all of the related workspaces, or all of the workspaces that use the same repos, right? The workspace allows you to bring a team together using your GitHub repositories. So if we look here, we now see an overview of all of the pipelines, the columns, used in each one of our workspaces. So you see the whole team workspace with that big, super long flow there. And then if I scroll down, we see we've got a product and design workspace with their columns, their pipelines. We see we've picked a small team, a pod, a squad called Team Watney here. And they've got two major workflows that they have. They've got a refinement workspace, they have a sprint planning workspace, and they have a current sprint workspace. And so if you think about those three activities, right, they've got a purpose-built workspace for each one. You'd see they've got their first column, not ready for refinement, icebox, and backlog. Those are the decision patterns when you're refining work. Are we going to do this? No? Okay, put it in the icebox. If we're really not going to do it, we could close it. Otherwise, it's a decision about how much effort is involved in this. Do we understand and do we agree that someone could pick this body of work up and start working on it? Yes. If so, we put it in the backlog. And at that point, like, that's refinement, right? It's the coming to an agreement that the team understands the body of work and that there's an agreement upon an estimate or how much effort is involved, right? At this point, Team Watney would, on a regular basis, they go into sprint planning, right? Usually, last day of the sprint, you come together. That way you have an understanding of the work that's in progress, review / QA, ready for release, the stuff that's not quite done. Because when you make your plan for your next sprint, you need to consider any work that is going to carry over. Because, you know, ideal, you want to get everything done each and every sprint. But again, reality can be messy, right? So as a result, when you plan for your sprint, you need to have a view of the work that's still going on, that hasn't completed. And then what do you need to do? Well, you're not going to worry about any of the work that's not ready for sprint planning. You're going to take work from the product backlog and move it into the sprint backlog, right? So here are pipelines for these decision points. When sprint planning is done, then you go into the current sprint, and you can see they have anything that hasn't gone through refinement, that hasn't gone through design, that hasn't been described by the product team. That's in the not ready for implementation. And then we have epics, sprint backlog, in progress, review, QA, ready for release, right? And then the next handoff, right? So these three workspaces are used by Team Watney. And then we have a QA workspace where work is either not ready for testing or it's ready for testing. It's in testing, and then 2 decision points. Did it fail or has it been verified? And then, if something's ready to go out the door, then we go to the release workspace, and things are either not ready for release or ready for release. So the overview is really cool in itself, right? Because it gives you an understanding of how each team and how each team's own process works. But the really amazing thing here is that we can now coordinate issue movements across all of these workspaces. So when we created workspaces, we did them so that your team of teams, right, that each small team could work the way that makes sense for them. There are a number of things that flow through from workspace to workspace to workspace, right? Who's assigned, the estimate, labels, any comments or any content within the issue, that all flows across workspaces. The card position hasn't flowed across workspaces because, again, what's in progress in the design team may not be in progress for the development team, right? So, however, with this new addition, we now can set up some pretty cool stuff. So let's kind of follow an issue as it winds its way through this complex workflow between teams and within teams. So here we go. We're going to start here with a product and design workspace because that's where the idea starts. Now, granted, this could be an idea that comes in through customer feedback. So the originator of this may not be a member of the product and design work team, right? This could be anybody, right? But this is the place where it starts. We have a new issue created, and the default state here is to be triaged. Now, at this point, there's a decision point. Is it going to go into the design backlog, right? Or are we going to icebox it? So if we icebox it, then we need to send that signal to other teams. And we're going to use that whole team workspace here as the way to broadcast, this message that, okay, we're going to say any issue that moves into the icebox in the product and design workspace, we're going to move that into the icebox in the whole team workspace. And we're going to connect these pipelines. All right, done. So now, when that movement happens, oh, we had a little jump here. That's interesting. Let me just reload that for a second. There we go. And we had a little jump there. That was weird. So icebox to icebox. Now, next up, we're going to work through the internal team process. Goes into a design backlog, up next, in progress, design critique, and then ready for development. Now, at this point, it's been described by the product owner. It has a design, and we now need to send it to the refinement workspace for one of the development teams. So here we go. We're going to click ready for development here, and we're going to send the signal that this issue is now ready for the team to refine it, right? So we click connect. And at this point, the development team has a decision point, right? After we bring it up during refinement, we decide whether or not we have all the information that we need, right? Maybe we have to have a little back and forth conversation in the issue with the product owner, the person that wrote this up. And there's another decision point here. What if it's not technically feasible to do this? Well, then in this case, well, guess what? The development team may decide this needs to go in the icebox. So we can connect this icebox to this icebox, which, because we've got this icebox already connected to the whole team workspace, it's now going to flow all the way through. So the product and design team will notice, hey, this has hit our icebox, also hit the whole team workspace. And hopefully there's been a collaboration already before that happens. And at this point, it's now going into the backlog. And so here's where we're going to move from the refinement workspace to the sprint planning workspace, because refinement is the act of getting the work ready. It's not putting into a plan, it's getting the work ready. So we're going to connect this backlog to the product backlog column, and we're going to click connect. Now, during sprint planning, right, which is the next activity that we've come to here, we need to decide what is going into the sprint. And so that's the act of moving work from the product backlog into the sprint backlog, taking into consideration the work that is in progress, in review, ready for release. If this stuff is all set to go, maybe you don't need to worry about the points that are assigned to here. And that if this stuff isn't done, then you take your velocity, you subtract the work that's in progress, and then you fill up your sprint backlog with just enough issues to equal your velocity. So in progress work plus work in the sprint backlog, the number of points should equal your velocity. So we're going to set sprint backlog now to go to the sprint backlog of the next workspace, the current sprint. Okay. At this point, a team member, a squad member, a pod member will pick up this work and start working on it. They'll drag it into their in progress column. When they believe it's ready for testing, right? When it goes into this QA column, we can connect this and sync it with the ready for testing column. All right. Now, once we start testing this thing, there are two outcomes. It can either fail or be verified. Now, if it fails, we're going to ask that team member that implemented this to take another pass. So we'll connect the failed column back to the in progress column. So this will actually move that card from review/QA back to in progress, which will alert the team member, not quite done. So we'll connect that. Now, if it's verified, what happens next? Well, it's ready for release. So we'll connect the verified column to the ready for release column and then click connect. Now, a couple of things that I haven't done. I haven't sent signals back to the whole team workspace here. I've been mainly focused on the internal flows and the intra-team flows. Now let's connect the dots up to the one up here. The other things that I haven't addressed up here are these long-term goals and short-term goals. So these are typically cross-team, cross-function goals. So we at ZenHub, we kind of have two levels of hierarchy when it comes to goals, right? Well, three really. Work that's being done in the sprint goal. Work that spans sprints, but not many sprints. So those are kind of short-term goals, things that are going to take a couple of sprints. We represent those as epics. And then we've got some long-term goals that take many sprints, span quarters from time to time. These tend to be like businessy goals, right? Things that we're going to try and increase this by 40%, quarter over quarter, those kind of things. So these kind of goals are typically set up above and sent back down. So we can connect this long-term goals column over to this epics column. So we can do, multiple directions here. So let's connect that. And then the short-term goals, let's also connect that to the epics. So any one of these epics here that hits the long-term goals or the short-term goals, they'll hit the epics column here. Now let's fill in some of the gaps. So over here, product and design, when it goes into the design backlog, let's send that signal up to the whole team. When it goes into in progress in the design workspace, we're going to set it to in design there. When it hits the product backlog in the sprint planning workspace, we're going to connect this to the development backlog. When it hits the sprint backlog in the current sprint workspace, we're going to connect that to the sprint backlog. When the development team starts working on it, we're going to connect this in progress to the in progress column of the whole team workspace. When it is ready for testing, we're going to connect this to the review column. When it is in testing, we're going to connect this to the QA in progress column. When it is ready for release, we're going to connect this to the to be deployed column. And finally, when things are deployed, it gets closed. Closed equals running in production. So, whew, that looks like a lot, right? But if you hover over this and you work across your workflow and you think about like the flow of work, it actually is really easy to see where work is going. So you can use this both as a way to automate those changes across all of these different workspaces within teams, across teams, and let's actually see what this works like. So I'm going to take issue number 42 here, and we're in the product and design workspace. We're going to say it's in the design backlog. Maybe I'll select it and apply an issue or a label, sorry. Click done. At some point it moves into the up next and goes into the in progress column. Now, did you see that little thing down at the bottom? Also moving issues in workflows, whole team workspace. So if I now click over to the whole team workspace view, look at that, there's issue number 42 in design. Okay, so we'll go back. It moves through design critique, right? And once we get the thumbs up, we're ready for development. And you'll see also moving in workflows team Watney, ready for refinement. So let's jump over to that workspace. And here it is. It has popped up in the ready for refinement column, right? At this point, the team has a decision. Is this going to be done soon? Not soon? Let's say this backlog here, you can see this is the current sprint. It ends on October 2nd. So let's say we're going to do this. We're not going to interrupt the current sprint, obviously, right? We're going to put it into the next, the queue for the next sprint. So we're going to pop this over here. And during refinement, the team will also, through planning poker, will vote on an estimate. And let's say that the team comes up with an estimate of 3. That gets assigned here. We might also apply a label just so to send another signal that this has been refined. Awesome. Click done. It's now in the backlog. If I click over to the sprint planning sprint, well, look, there it is now in the product backlog, right? And it's up at the top. Here's the sprint backlog. So here's what happens. The sprint, starts happening, all this stuff moves from in progress to there, and the work starts happening, at which point, let's say we are ready for sprint planning. Let's say we have a velocity of 38 points. Well, we're going to subtract the current stuff here unless we're sure that we're done, that this is going to flow out the door. So let's not worry about the 13 points, but we are going to have to worry about this 30 points of still in progress work and the 5 points here, which means that the only thing we have left in our capacity is about 3 points. So we're going to then move this into the sprint backlog. And you can see it's also moving in the sprint workspace. At this point, when you're doing sprint planning, we'll also set a milestone. So we'll put it into the sprint. And let's click done. Let's flip over to the current sprint board, and lo and behold, issue number 42 is here. During the sprint, we're going to move some stuff around, and let's say we're working on issue 42. We move to review and QA, and says it's also moving in, and we pop over to the QA workspace, and a moment or two later, it shows up here, ready for testing. At this point, I'm going to just say the card moves are background tasks, and depending on how many cards you all are moving around at any given time, you typically see what we just saw, a moment or two, and then the cards start showing up in the other workspaces. If it's not instantaneous, don't worry, it'll show up in a moment or a little bit. So don't sweat.
George, we had a question come in.
Yep.
Who on the team is able to create a workflow?
Okay. So great question. So we adhere to GitHub access controls. This is a write level permission set. So anyone with write access who can set up a workspace and can edit a workspace can create a workflow. So great question. This is not available to anyone with read access. Setting up a workflow, you have to have at least write access to do so. All right, so back to following issue number 42, ready for testing. We start testing it. You can see it's also moving in the whole team workspace. If I pop back over there, we'll see, there it is. Look, the issue has been moving along. Finally, let's fail this. Let's fail. It's also moving in Team Watney current sprint. Let's pop back a workspace. Yep, there it is in progress. We're going to take another pass at this, right? Let's move it back into QA. Let's say we've opened another pull request and it's ready to go. Here it is. It's now ready for testing again. So we move it into testing, and this time we verify it. At this point, you'll see it's also moving in the release workspace. We pop over there, and here it is, ready for release. Again, separation of duties. This team now is going to deploy this into production, and it is closed, and issue 42 is all done. So this is an incredibly powerful and frankly super cool way to coordinate work both within your own team and external to your own small team, right? The people that you work with on a day-to-day basis, right? This really allows you to coordinate work across a team of teams in a way that has never been possible before. This is really cool. So at this point, I'm gonna go back here to my seemingly complex but really easy to set up map and ask Julie, do we have any additional questions that have come in?
Yeah, there was actually a question came in. This is great, and I can see my team really utilizing this. How do I disconnect a workflow?
How do I disconnect a workflow? Awesome. All right. Let's say we have to, due to regulatory controls, we have to add another step or another handoff. And we need to put a layer between the QA workspace and the release workspace. And so what we need to do is now disconnect this verified to ready for release. So you click the starting pipeline, and then it says when issues are moved to verified, then select the destination, and then, let's try that again. When you click that, you can then get a remove connection option, at which point you can disconnect the automation between these two pipelines. So it's as easy to disconnect and remove that automation as it is to set that up. So hopefully that answered the question. What else?
Yeah, another one came in. All the connections you made are going one-to-one. Can you make it go one-to-many?
To make it go one-to-many. Okay, so within a workspace, an issue can only exist in a single pipeline at a time. Okay, GitHub itself doesn't have the base ability to recognize an issue in more than one place within the same kind of view. So you can absolutely set up multiple moves, which I've done a couple of times here. Can I move this from the same column to, let's say, I don't know, I'll just pick this one here. Yes, so I can move this into multiples, but you get one move per destination workspace. The starting workspace, you can connect a pipeline to multiple destinations, but within a workspace, one destination, because an issue can only exist in a single pipeline at a time. So again, yes, we can set up one pipeline to fire off all of these automations moves across a bunch of different workspaces. But one limitation is that the destination, you can only pick one pipeline to move into. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that answered that question.
I'll give everyone another minute or so if we have any other questions. Nothing else has popped in yet.
Okay. So it's funny, when we designed this, we had a bunch of feedback from teams that said, workspaces are great. I wish we were as amazing as that Spotify squad video suggested, but we do have these handoffs, or we work in a regulated industry, and so we have to hand it off from team to team to team. So we designed it with that in mind. But as we were building this and working through this, the ability to create these, to use this feature to create like these hyper-focused workspaces for, within team activities, leapt out, right? And it really fundamentally changes how you use ZenHub when you have the ability to create a workspace that's just for refinement, and focus in on that activity and let ZenHub support you in getting your refinement done, right? Because refinement is, the act of getting to agreement on whether or not you understand how to build this thing, what the estimate that the team agrees it is, and when you're going to do it, what the priority is. It allows you to focus in on sprint planning and just see the stuff that's ready to go into a sprint plan. And then during the sprint, being able to, park all those issues that are not ready for the team to look at for the current sprint, parking them into that like not ready for implementation column is just, it's like magic, right? Because it really hyper focuses the team. Julie, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we got a few more that came in.
Okay.
So a question here, assume issues keep same number as they move between workflows. Can this result in conflicts?
So there is one and only one issue. So that issue number 42, we're not actually duplicating those issues. So all of these workspaces here use the same set of GitHub repositories. So we are working together using the same core data, right? GitHub, the issues in those GitHub repositories, but we are allowing that issue to live in different pipelines and different workspaces. And now through the automated workflows for team workspaces, coordinate moves between those workspaces. So nope, no conflicts. Because again, we're following an issue across workspaces and across these automated moves. All right, what's next?
Yeah, we had another question that came in. Can you connect a pipeline to the closed pipeline or move an issue from, let's say, product backlog to the closed pipeline?
Can you connect it to, as you see here, that is the last column, the closed pipeline is not one of the ones that you can connect to. And again, because this is the final end state for an issue, in order to get anything into any closed pipeline, all you have to do is close that issue and it's automatically replicated across all of your workspaces. That's a base GitHub issue state, right? GitHub only has two workflow states by default, open and closed, right? So, so in order to move an issue into the closed pipeline, just move it in on your board or close it within the issue, and it will automatically go across the board. I think I forgot to mention that at first, but the automated workflows, we don't do anything with the closed pipeline. That's a special pipeline, and just move it into the closed pipeline in any workspace and it'll automatically do that anyway, which is pre-existing behavior. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, a question kind of popped up here saying, then do you suggest having a done pipeline before it moves to closed?
So it all depends on what your definition of done is and how your team works. Done pipelines are super common. And on the Team Watney current sprint workspace here, we had this ready for release pipeline. And we could actually connect this verified to the ready for release so that when it's done and verified, then Team Watney gets the signal back that says, yep, this is ready to go. It's the functional equivalent of a done pipeline, this ready for release pipeline. If you have control over deploying the work out into production, if that's not a handoff, then you might have a deployment pipeline, you might have a ready for release pipeline, completely up to you. Having a done pipeline is just a place for the issue to stop before it goes to closed. Overwhelmingly, most of our customer base, closed equals running in production for those that are doing cloud deployments. The other pattern that I have seen for the done pipeline is, all right, we're before we close stuff, we're going to show it at on the last day of the sprint, on the end of sprint activities, where you have a demo, you have a retrospective, and then you plan for your next sprint. Where the done pipeline is often the place where, all right, we're going to demo this thing running live in production and we're going to use the cards in the done pipeline to guide our demo. At which point, when everybody's like, yeah, this is great, we close it, and then we're really done. So again, it depends on what your team's definition of done is, and that's up to you to decide together. Hopefully that answers the question. Any more, Julie?
That's it for now. I just posted that. I think we have time maybe for one more, if anyone else has any other lingering thoughts. We've gone through a lot today, which is great.
We have. All right. All right, cool. So, so here's what we'll say. If you aren't using ZenHub today, you can try it for free, zenhub.com. If you are a ZenHub user already, hit zenhub.com and join our Slack community. If you prefer Discord, we've got a community there as well. Join, connect with us, connect with the broader ZenHub community. You can get tips, tricks, and all kinds of stuff. With that, hopefully you found this useful. Do we have one more?
There's one more,
Okay.
and you're kind of hovering right around it. So training, what about, is there training available for this feature, or what other resources can I utilize?
Yes, so first and foremost, check out Virtual, our YouTube channel. We have our 2.5-minute tutorial series. There is a video up already about using automated workflows for team workspaces. Now, additionally, you have access to the to our coaching staff here at ZenHub as well. So in order to do that, you go to zenhub.com and click on support, and then from there you can sign up. Overwhelmingly, for the vast majority of our customer base, that is a complimentary service. So send us a request, and you can sign up, and we can help you and your team craft a workflow that works for you. So, all right, we are just about out of time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time since we set this up for 45 minutes. Any last minute burning questions there, Julie?
No more questions, but a comment came in saying, thank you so much for this. So thank you,
You're very
ZenHub.
welcome. So I'm going to just say, as not just an employee, but as a long-time user of ZenHub, I love this. Like, it's really great. And being able to set up those super hyper-focused views for myself and just move the cards, and then ZenHub does the rest. Oh, it's like magic. It really is. So thank you very much. And hopefully you found this useful. We'll be posting the recording. You'll get an email link to the recording. We'll also post it up on YouTube, to our YouTube channel. So share this video, and everybody have a great rest of their day, and have fun getting some things done with ZenHub. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.